Welcome back to WRPL, the podcast where we talk about all the things we are watching, reading, playing, and listening to. My name's Ben.
And I'm Steve.
We pick movies for each other and kind of force something onto the other person, whether it's something we know they would hate or something we know they would love, but they just haven't gotten around to watching it. So today, we have, I want to say like genre-specific.
Sure.
Yeah, you got an action horror, I got a suspense thriller. But they're kind of, especially with mine, it's got a specific trope that you've kind of seen before, just kind of put in a new setting. Mm-hmm. Steve made me watch Grand Piano, and I made him watch my favorite vampire movie, Daybreakers. I got some things to say, much more than last time when we did.
I was hoping so.
Paddington.
The last couple movies I made you watch, you weren't thrilled about. So yep. I honestly tried to pick something that I think is awesome from what I remember of it. So I was hoping that would pass on to you. Okay. And if that failed once again, then I don't know what to pitch you.
So do you want to go? Do you want me to go? What do you want to talk about first?
I feel like we've talked about Daybreakers on the show a little bit before, so especially during our vampire episode. So why don't we start with that?
Okay.
Just get out the way, and then we can talk about something we haven't talked about on the show before.
Awesome.
Or at least in limited capacity, because I may have brought up Grand Piano before as well.
Probably.
Anyway, so Daybreakers, starring Willem Dafoe,
That's right.
Ethan Hawke, and Sam Neill. For those who don't know, is about society has now become almost all vampires. The human race is on the brink of extinction. They use humans for blood farming, essentially, but the blood supply is running low, and some of the vampires are turning into more like Nosferatu-style vampires, and it's Ethan Hawke's job to try and find a way to save the human race / vampire race, and he teams up with a band of surviving humans, and hilarity ensues.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
He's trying to make a synthetic blood because there are so few humans that they need something, and all the tests just make the test subjects explode and die in some sort of way, and it's coming down to the wire. It's like a month, and they will have nothing left. But they're still like serving blood and coffee, and everything's going. The world has moved on kind of as normal. There's still businesses, and it's just now they have catwalks in between skyscrapers, so you don't ever have to be outside. Sam Neill is the head of the corporation.
Yeah, like a biotech company. Yeah,
and we don't know if this is. I'm assuming it's worldwide, but we don't really see much of the world. We're just kind of focused on this one city. I like to believe that they've all kind of congregated into one area, but it's never really said.
Yeah, no. I kind of just assumed it was like every country is now this, because, why wouldn't it? Especially when they have like cars that are specifically designed to get them to travel through the day. Yeah. I'm like, obviously it would take multiple time, and they would have to fly or get on a boat for long stretches of time where sun's up and all that stuff. But if the vampire race is built as a society in America, you're telling me other countries aren't flying in to try and combat them? I think the whole world would be vampires.
Yeah, if we are 8 to 12 hours a day, we can't be outside, and there's another country filled with humans, it'd be very easy to come and take over America.
Right, exactly.
Quite quickly. So, all right. So, what'd you think?
I'll give you my general thought, which is this is a great movie trapped in a mediocre movie.
Okay.
It's filled with a ton of ideas I absolutely love. I just don't think it was executed to its full potential.
Okay.
And that's what's disappointing about it. Because when you told me about it, when I saw the trailer for this, over a decade ago, and it was in the theater you and I were working at, I didn't think anything of it. I had no desire to see it. It didn't look like anything special to me. And then a couple of weeks ago, when you were telling me about it, and you listed this is all the stuff that happens, that actually sounds kind of awesome. And there's a lot of stuff that is awesome. So let's get into that.
Okay.
So I I love the idea of them going, well, we're going to take every vampire trope and put it in the same movie and make it all make sense. Or like make everything fit into this world.
Sure.
Like the Nosferatu vampires, we got them.
Yeah. And that's it, when you feed on vampire blood, you start de-evolving. And it's kind of like a faux pas.
Or like, well, you don't have to feed on vampire blood. Like that accelerates it. But if you just don't drink blood for a long period of time...
Well, I thought it was like if you start feeding on yourself or other vampires, that's what causes it, not the lack of. Is it the lack of blood?
Well, everyone has a lack of blood, and then you start seeing like their ears to poke out and everything because like the blood supply is running low. Yeah. So people are like becoming more ravenous, but it's just like if they get so hungry, they start feeding on themselves, and then that just makes them sicker, and you know, because they're just recycling their own poison essentially. But Ethan Hawke doesn't drink human blood, but I think he drinks some like pig's blood or something like that. So he drinks
cats and stuff.
And I love how they come up with the cure. Well, the first cure, and then there's like a second cure.
Yes.
So the first cure is like, oh, the sun, of course, will kill you if you sit out in the sun. But if you sit out in the sun while you're like underwater, or eventually later in the movie, you see they have a tank that sucks out all the air, thus eliminating the fire. You can basically burn out the infection. I was like, that's a really great idea too.
It just makes so much sense. That's why you burn up and you explode, because it's trying to kill that and your body can't handle it.
It's essentially what the actual human body does. Like, oh, you have an infection, your body gets really hot because it's trying to kill the virus inside of you. Sometimes you just get so hot you die. And this one, you get so hot you burst into flames. But luckily, you heal fast if you're a vampire. But yeah, I love that, and I liked that. Once you are cured, if a vampire drinks your cured blood, that cures them. Which, this is one of the problems I had with it.
Okay.
Is there's a really great scene at the end. We're just going to jump straight to the end because it's the part I want to talk about the most. So it's really awesome that there's like one cured vampire, Ethan Hawke's brother, and he kind of essentially sacrifices himself. Like 6 vampires drink his blood, they all get cured. Then all the other vampires see them. They're because everyone's essentially starving at this point. Then they're like, oh shit, more. So they start feeding on them. Those guys die. It's just like this. I thought it'd be this like really cool rippling effect that would like spread across like the world. But then Ethan Hawke's science partner shows up, kills a lot. So it's like back to square one, where it's like, okay, we now have the cure, but Ethan Hawke and Willem Dafoe are the only 2 people who essentially have the cure. Yeah. It's like, those are the 2 smartest guys, and they can say, hey, burn yourself up and jump.
There were a couple of them left, weren't they? Just like sitting there.
They
killed them all?
Well, there was a couple guys left who kind of survived the massacre, which there's an awesome shot where it's like the slow motion like painting or something like that of all these soldiers just like brutally ripping each other up. It's fucking cool. There's a lot of actually really great shots in this movie. But I just thought like that was going to be how the movie kind of ended. Just like you see those guys disperse, and then you kind of just see the rippling effect that would go out. But it's just like, nope. Well, we have the cure, and if there's a sequel, we'll we'll explore more of that.
I think the idea is that that's what happens. It will ripple through eventually.
It was fine, but I love the idea. I just thought that's how it was going to end. Is you would just see the cure go out and like, okay, we defeat the vampires, but it's more, but they just get in a car and it's like, we have the cure, and they're driving off into the sunset. All right, that's kind of classic. That just seemed like a Hollywood note, just give a little bit more tinge of like hope. So people don't quite. I don't know. But yeah, there's a scene with Sam Neill's daughter after she gets turned, and they have all these vampires like chained up to the back of this van that they like pull out into the sun, and it's just like slowly setting all these people on fire. I was like, there's some really great shots in that. I thought that scene was very effective. Yeah,
because they've been trying to like help these kind of,
they call them the subsiders, I think. Yeah,
they're trying to help them, but they're like, why are we giving them blood? They're already too gone. You need to just start eliminating them because they're just a burden on society.
Yeah, I think the scene works really well. My problem with that, they didn't expand more, and this movie's only an hour and a half, which I like. So if this is the way you're gonna go, like I have no complaints in that regard. But because the movie was filled with so many great ideas, I wanted this movie to be longer. Surprisingly, it was just like, okay, so you have these 2 essentially races of vampires, the ones who are the Nosferatu types, and then your normal vampire types, and you could see the inklings of like superiority and not necessarily racism, but just like, but we're better than them.
Yeah.
Kill them off. Who cares? Yeah. They're not people anymore, even though they are not people anymore. Yeah. But that wasn't really explored. There's the idea of, I think you could have done stuff with like capitalism and corporate greed with Sam Neill's character. And like it's all, we're the wealthy elite. There's a lot of like hints of ideas that never really go anywhere. Yeah. Which, like I said, if you're doing an hour and a half movie, it's fine. But like just giving me the hints, I'm like, well, I want more of that. Yeah. And yeah, so that's. Well, do you have any more thoughts before I just keep going?
I love this movie for all those reasons. It's different than any other vampire movie I've seen. It's either like Blade and you gotta eliminate them, or it's Interview with the Vampire and it's very romantic and it spans eons. I like that this is just kind of a end of the world apocalyptic movie, and it's just vampires trying to figure out how to survive. There's only one thing I really dislike about this movie is they don't have reflections.
I wrote that in my notes.
Because it's like when they're in the car, they have cameras so they can see. And it's the one vampire thing I can never get on board with. It just doesn't make sense. And,
I agree.
And I've said before, it's like you have your religious, your supernatural, and your scientific vampires. And the no reflection can work for the supernatural or the religious kind, but this seems to take more of a science stance.
Right.
And it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And I mean, I imagine that the writers or the director of this movie kind of thought the same thing. So they're just like, we'll have it in there for the vampire fans, but we're not going to do anything with it. Yeah. Because I think if you have that, you got to do something cool with it. Like, someone, the guy gets naked or something, and then someone's looking in the mirror, and when they turn around, but the guy's actually there. It's just like, you couldn't see him because...
Sure.
But something silly like that. But yeah,
it's just like a car rear view mirror.
Yeah, it's like one shot in the beginning, and then it's never brought up again.
If it was like when they're looking, everything is wavy and foggy, and you can't quite make it out, like the image is trying to come together. Okay, I could kind of maybe buy that, but just completely invisible, like seeing a pin float by because they're holding it, it's just silly.
I agree. That's the one thing I didn't like about it either. I think the auto crossbows that they invented were pretty cool. Yeah. The exploding vampire thing, I think, felt like it was just done for the visual aspect of just like, okay, well, this movie is an action movie, but we have no real reason to have explosions, so we'll just make the vampires explode. Yeah. I didn't really care about that too much. Like, if they want to explode because, like, the sun was making them explode, like, I'd be fine with that.
Getting them in the heart.
Yeah, just shooting them in the heart, making them go, like, explode. I didn't really care for it. But it was fine.
That was the first time I ever saw that was in Blade, and it's like, oh my god, normally you just see someone, they get stabbed in the heart and they gasp and then they fall over, but actually seeing them burn up, and like, wow, that's a really interesting effect, and so many movies have kind of taken that. If it was like you shoot them and they got silver, garlic, something, that can make you explode because that's a biochemical thing. They're just allergic to those things. But when it's like, oh, I got stabbed in the heart and now I'm gonna explode, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
But you have some interesting shots when it's like in the desert and it's completely dark and they're shooting and then vampires are blowing up.
Like that scene, I thought like, okay, that's cool, but I feel like they made them explode solely for that scene. Yeah. I think the harvest room was a really cool shot. Very visually scary, of just seeing like warehouse full of bodies, just naked bodies just hanging, getting blood drained. I thought that was a cool look.
Yep. So I like the shot of Willem Dafoe getting ejected out of his car. That's just like head first into the water on fire as he's falling in.
It was almost comedic the way it was, just like they threw a rag doll in like a old SNL sketch or something like that. But yeah, that was a cool shot. So negatives, I can't really hold it against this movie because it's, so much of this movie takes place at night. But it's just something I feel like, it's just something I don't like in movies, is when night movies, or movies particularly shot at night, just like everything's blue all the time, and like even when they're inside and there is lights, the lights are blue.
Yeah. But it could be a thing like well, we can't have UV lights because that burns us, and maybe even fluorescents hurt to a certain extent. So we change them all out because this is better for our vision and for our skin. It could be, but even on the street, everybody is just
Well, yeah,
blue.
so it's like I don't think that the lights are blue themselves. I just think it's just the hue of the movie that they're going for. It's like, well, yeah, you're inside, but we need to establish that this is definitely a nighttime, so here's a blue filter. And
Or it's like, oh, they're cold and dead, so it's got to be blue. And then when you get to the humans, well, it's the desert, and it's brown, and it's warm colors, and they're alive. So it makes sense, like visual storytelling, but it does get a little... It's kind of like The Matrix, how everything is kind of green.
Yeah.
It's just that, but with blue.
Yeah. It said in the movie that it is now 10 years since the vampire outbreak, but it just seems like this movie is futuristic, because I think the movie takes place in 2019. So the movie comes out in 2009. It's now 10 years later. It's 2019. But I just feel like they've established society somewhat. I don't know if it was too quickly, because like they're still like themselves, they just themselves who crave blood, but to just set up an entire society that runs on blood and have everyone's got cars with the cameras, or at least it seems that way. And
just the automotive industry, it keeps going.
Like there's, vampire senator, and like in 10 years you told me they wiped. I mean, I guess obviously this thing could spread fast. I don't know. Just I wish I had a little bit more info on the outbreak itself and how like they set up this world so quickly. But I mean, that's just a minor thing, because in the grand scheme of the movie, it doesn't really matter. Just it's always interesting when you see like, oh, we jumped into the future, but it's like, okay, well I'm interested in like the past stuff too. But anyway, I think that is just about it. I enjoyed the movie. I'm glad you pitched it to me. It's probably my favorite vampire movie. Cool. Maybe just for the ideas behind. Well, maybe What We Do in the Shadows. It's probably my favorite. But I really liked this, and I would recommend it. But that's the other thing. It's like it's not action enough to be an action movie, and it's not scary enough to I would be like, oh, you have to. It's barely a horror movie.
Barely a horror, and it has big ideas, but it doesn't really. It's not philosophical in any way, even though it could be. It really rides the line of being a specific thing. And
the other thing I think didn't really work is some of the character stuff. It's like, was I supposed to care about Sam Neill's daughter at all?
See, I really like that story of just like, I refuse to go along with my father. I will not be turned. I'm going to do everything I can to help the humans. Then getting caught and being forced upon by Ethan Hawke's brother. And it's like, okay, you win, Dad. I'm finally a vampire like you always wanted me to be. But I'm not going to let you be happy about it. I'm going to actually force you to kill me because you put me in this situation. I really liked all that.
No, I mean, I liked that idea. It's just we barely got any time with her character. And like we've already established we don't like Sam Neill's character. So it's like, I'm rooting for someone that this guy who I don't like cares about, even though that this girl who I don't know dies. It's like I wanted to like that character. And I mean, I like the idea of just like, fuck you, Dad, kind of thing. But I don't know. I just all the characters in that movie you could have had like get pulled out into the sun and die. On paper, she made sense, but in terms of the movie, like I think there would be other characters who I'd be like sad about. Like if the woman who helps Ethan Hawke, she was the one. Like she was one from the very beginning. Like that's the person who is like, if she got pulled out, it'd be like, oh, that's a bummer. Like because they could have had like a romantic connection that didn't go. It was like a lost, not necessarily lost love, but it's just like she was the one person other than Ethan Hawke who you're like really rooting for in that movie. Or maybe even his brother would have been good. But here's just this like third tier character who's just introduced to like give the villain some human qualities. But probably. Like essentially he was a dick from the get-go. So
I think they really wanted that scene, and they needed someone that you are supposed to care about, and you don't care about the vampires, and you can't have Dr. Lady die because she's got to do her Dr. Lady stuff.
Right.
So you gotta have this character in.
Or like just find a cute, precocious little 6-year-old or something. They're just like, oh, well, the they die. That's sad.
Oh,
you know, children's dead.
That's
Yeah.
the
Or like
sad
if they were
thing.
vampire puppies, give me a dead vampire puppy. That'd be sad.
Hey, this isn't Blade 3.
No.
The directors are, I think it's pronounced Spierig Brothers.
Spierig Brothers.
Spierig Brothers, which before this, they did a movie called Undead, which I know the cover. It's like a guy in a gas mask, and it's all orange, and he's holding a gun. I'm sure it's just a zombie movie. Never saw it. But after this, they made Predestination, which I know you've seen with Ethan Hawke, and that's an amazing movie.
Yeah.
After that, they did Jigsaw. Okay, it's better than Spiral. It's not the worst.
If you're doing it for the paycheck, so you can make some other weird
Sure.
shit. Okay.
And then they did Winchester, that Helen Mirren. It's based on a true story of the Winchester house. It's in California. She saw ghosts, so she kept building onto her mansion and making crazy hallways that go nowhere, doors that open up to the outside to confuse the ghosts. And she just kept adding and adding and adding to her house. And you can go in and tour it. But
Cool.
they turned it into a, like a Blumhouse sort of, there's actual ghosts and, jump scares and, it's not a truthful story of the mental illness this woman has. Like, no, this is just a Conjuring sort of thing. And
Sure.
an old lady who sees ghosts. And I never saw it, but I hear it's pretty bad.
To go from like cool idea and a mediocre movie to a really well thought out time travel movie
Yep.
to then just do two mediocre horrors. Okay.
Now,
I mean,
it's not fair. Predestination, they didn't write it. I mean, they wrote the screenplay, I believe, but it is based on a book called All You Zombies. It's a short story, which pretty much tells the same thing, but they really expanded on it and added the terrorist threats and stuff like that. Then their next movie, it's in pre-production, not coming out until 2023, is called False Flag. So I'm sure that's going to be a political thing. There's no information on IMDb right now, but we'll see.
okay. Well, I'll let the first two slide after Predestination. So if this third one is a crapshoot, might have to hang up on the Spierig Brothers.
Yeah, Spierig Brothers.
Spierig Brothers,
and
yeah.
just go to the Daniels, another team up. Non-brothers, but a team up. So, yeah, Daybreakers, do you want to give it a letter score at all, or?
Sure. I will give it a C+.
Okay.
Yeah, C+.
Oh, okay. So you made me watch Grand Piano, which is the story of Elija Wood. He's a pianist with stage fright. He trained under the world's greatest pianist, who has like an impossible symphony that he wrote, and he's the only other person who could possibly play this because he's just so damn good. But he had kind of a little flub 5 years ago and kind of got shamed, and he hasn't performed in that time. He's dating a very famous actress singer, and she's been kind of pulling the limelight away from him, but that's not really a big part of the story. So it's 5 years later. He's gonna do a tribute to his mentor, playing on his mentor's grand piano that super valuable, is shipped in with guards, and he's gonna play this or actually he's just gonna play something. I can't remember what it was, but it was just something simple, just something for him to come back on. So then when he's nervous, he goes out there, and on his music sheet it's like, hey, I got a gun. If you don't play this perfectly, I'm gonna shoot you or shoot your wife or any number of people. What's his fucking name? John Cusack is a sniper in the rafters. He's got a little laser on him, and like, if you move, if you try to call out, you get up, you walk off stage, you do anything, I'm gonna blow your fucking brains out. You need to play this perfectly. And it turns out he needs to play it perfectly because the master whose piano this was, he had a huge fortune, and nobody knows where it is. No one could get access to it, but John Cusack helped build this piano with a secret compartment, and when he plays the last few lines, it will unlock, give him the key, and so he can get this money. So if I'm doing a this meets that, this is Phone Booth meets Whiplash. It's
okay, yep.
person stuck in
Accurate.
one place with a gun on them, with person in their ear telling them all the bad things they're going to do, but it's also focused on music and extreme accuracy and, the not my tempo sort of thing. So when I first started this, I was like, okay, he's not special. It's got to be something else. It's the piano itself. This is going to be a big distraction to get the piano because it's worth so much money. He's either going to sell it or ransom it or whatever. I didn't think there would be a special secret compartment about inside it to get to his money.
Yeah, because the first thing he kind of says is like, well, what do you want? And he's just like, I want you to play the most beautiful song I've ever heard in my life or whatever. So it's like, oh, it's just like some psycho who just... I almost kind of like that idea better. It's just like, it makes more sense that there's this secret compartment plot or whatever.
Yeah.
But I also just kind of like the idea of like someone who just loves music so much. And just like, I just want to hear the greatest song from the greatest pianist who's ever lived.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then maybe you don't deserve to live. Whatever. Just
Whatever.
Some crazy people talk.
Which is, it's one of these plots where, like, if you don't do this, I'm going to blow your brains out. But if you're the only one who can do this, and if you walked away, I don't get the money. So it's really an empty threat. And we don't know that until later. But, like, what would John Cusack's plan be if he just ran off stage and just said, fuck it? Would he actually kill his wife? Because what is he going to get out of it? Yeah, he punishes Elija Wood, but his grand plan goes nowhere.
I think he would. I think he has the capacity to. Because we also find out that he has a partner who helps him, played by Alex Winter.
Yeah, that was nice to see.
Yeah, who you never see in
Rarely
much.
ever.
It's like he was Ted.
He's Bill.
Bill, damn it. He was Bill in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, and then spent the next 2 decades or 3 decades or whatever his career just like directing stuff or doing little bit parts. So like to see him in this was like actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
But his buddy is just like often Elija Wood's friends in this movie, so it's just like, so people are dying. If they're not empty threats,
but it's that guy killing them. John Cusack doesn't shoot anybody.
Sure, but
so does he have the capacity to actually do it, or does he just need that goon to do it?
You see the fight at the end. John Cusack's willing to at least kill.
Yeah.
Like his plan is somewhat foiled at that point. It's just like, well, fuck it. Well, I'm just
might as well.
Yeah.
But I that's at a point of like, we're so damn close, and ooh, you've messed with my plans this whole time. I'm willing to go over the edge now. But I think if it was at the very beginning, he got up and ran off stage, John Cusack wouldn't know what the fuck to do.
Well, I just think you would, just as like you fucked me over, I'm going to fuck you over and kill your wife. Or maybe even I'll kill your wife and then find you and kill you too.
Yeah.
We're arguing about stuff that doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But I think we're, as a viewer, I don't think this person was against murder.
Okay.
I think he's not trying to murder, but he would.
But it's hard to say because we don't get any backstory with this character. We don't know who he is besides he helped make the piano. So is he just a greedy dude? He's the only one that knows the answer to this treasure hunt. But it's not like, oh, I'm a military man and I got wronged and that's why I'm so good with the sniper rifle. You generally get something like that, but it's like, no, I just build pianos and I made the secret compartment and I just need to get access to it. Yeah,
well, I like that you don't really get a ton of his backstory. Because what do they just call him? He just calls himself Locksmith, right? That's his name in the movie?
Sure. I don't even remember.
Well, and in terms of like...
His name's Clem.
Well, that's his... Anyway. And in terms of like why he's such a good sniper, like he could have just, when he was like making this plan, he could have just bought a gun and just got.
Had 5 years.
He's never had. It's like, especially if you plan on your target not moving a lot and just being stuck in one place. Like, how much practice would you really need?
But we see him like use the laser and like, hey, look over here, and he shoots the ground. Like,
but he's just aiming at generic areas, so you're.
I know.
It doesn't really matter. It's like, how many people do we see nowadays just have access to gun and do gun stuff all the time?
That's very true.
Yeah, they're not all trained soldiers.
Yeah. So this is directed by Eugenio Mira. He hasn't done anything that I know. But the writer is Damien Chazelle. He wrote La La Land, or he wrote and directed some of these, but not all. La La Land, First Man, Whiplash, and he wrote 10 Cloverfield Lane. So this guy's got a pretty good filmography.
I think this is a movie he's not proud of being like named on, but you could see the inkling of. I think he more came on this project. I don't know if I didn't need to double check my sources, but I don't think he necessarily came up with a story.
He's the writer.
Well, yeah, but someone can come up with a story and then
but normally it would say like on IMDb, writer, story by, treatment by. He's the only person on that.
Well, then he wrote it, but I don't think he's proud of this movie. I think I saw in an interview, not that he necessarily denounced it, but because it wasn't like his, I think he's just like, whatever it is. I did it for the money. But I think this movie is kind of awesome. It's an underrated gem, in my opinion.
I don't really care for this movie.
God damn it.
I gave this like a D+. I think it is a concept like Phone Booth or...
Do you like Phone Booth?
Yeah, I like Phone Booth. But
I haven't seen Phone Booth in like 15, 20 years.
Yeah, it's fine. Or Cellular or any one of those. Like, gotta stay on the line in order to do the thing. But it's the small details that kind of bug me. Like, he grabs his phone and it goes like flying and he catches it in the air and hides it and the guy's like, "What are you doing down there? Stop fidgeting around." You didn't see him throw his phone in the air and catch it. He's the only thing you're looking at. How did you not see it? And then he's got his phone next to him and he's calling his I guess it would be his brother-in-law, his wife's sister's boyfriend or husband to, keep him on the line and hopefully he'll hear enough from one side of the conversation to do something. And then he has to like hide his phone behind his sheet music and he's texting through the sheet music and the guy's just like, "Hey, stop fiddling with your sheet music." And he's just like clearly typing. John Cusack would have to be an idiot if he's saying like, "You cannot move, you have to do this perfectly," and then he's seeing him acting all weird. He would know something's up. And that is the moment that cell phone was behind the sheet music. I was like, okay, this isn't that smart of a movie. This is a fun concept, but we've seen it before, and there's only so many places you can go with it, and this is kind of dumb. Especially at the his notes. I was like, it's written on there. I feel like it could have been handled better. Just, you make Elija Wood, he went deaf, and that's why he fucked up 5 years ago, and he's embarrassed by it. How can a deaf person be playing the piano even though there's all these classical people who've done so? And this is his big comeback. He has his earpieces or whatever. And then you just have Alex Winter swap out, we put new batteries in your, what are they called? Hearing aids. And it's actually just an earpiece. So now he's struggling with hearing and having to listen to this guy and play at the same time. I think it would have handled a little better than notes on his sheet music, because they're all like, he has to like flip multiple pages before he gets what's going on, and he's supposed to be playing at the same time. It just feels like you're telling him to be perfect at this, but you're fucking him up on purpose, and that's just going to foil your own plan. So why even bother? Or have the notes on one page, but he has to flip a few pages to get like the whole sentence. It just seemed kind of silly, and it could have been streamlined. Yeah,
and when I was rewatching some clips on YouTube just to refresh my memory, now, I agree that it's a little unlikely that he wouldn't spot that kind of stuff, but there's there's shots of him looking through the scope, and I imagine you would have to look through the scope the entire time, and I imagine most of the time he's kind of just like focused on Elija Wood's face, and when you see through the scope, it's very small. It's not a wide shot. You don't get his body, you don't get his hands. Like, he would have to move the scope around, and then he's so far back, like he wouldn't be able to see him do the phone stuff from his seat, really. Maybe. But I did rewatch that scene you're talking about, and yeah, the fumbling of the phone was a little silly. But I mean, I kind of like that they found like a clever way to. The phone through the paper, I thought was kind of fun. Does it make sense? Maybe not. But it's also a product of its time. Like, you could only do this bit with a BlackBerry.
Sure.
Because I don't think you could do it with
the touch screen.
The touch screen, yeah.
But even then, you're going to be making so many spelling errors. I can't see him getting a text message off that would make any sense to anybody. But I guess the point would be, why is this guy texting me? He's on stage right now.
Yeah.
Which everything John Cusack puts him through makes him look like an absolute psycho. Makes Elija Wood look crazy.
Yeah.
Like standing up and looking around and running off and coming back and like really manic. I think anybody in the audience or in the orchestra would say there's something wrong with this guy.
Yeah, but I think there's a lot of people, and I'm sure in your life, where you see something weird and you're just like, that's weird, or like, what's wrong with that fucking guy? And then you just get back in your car and drive away. Like,
sure,
most people don't, especially in a crowd full of like, I assume, rich people who are really, really into orchestras and stuff, who paid a ton of money. They're like, well, I'm not going to disrupt the show, especially if he's known as kind of like a manic player.
Sure.
Just like, maybe that's kind of part of the reason why they can't, like, we need to see if this guy's able to do it. And in terms of just like fucking him up on purpose, like, he only has to play at the last 16 bars or whatever correctly.
Sure.
So, yeah.
But we don't know that
Correct.
At that point. So it just seems like, why is this bad guy doing so much to hurt his own plan?
Yeah. I mean, I get the I'll agree with you, but that being said, I think this movie's fun enough, and I think Elija Wood really carries this movie. I think he's great in it.
Yeah, he's good.
John Cusack, who I think is often pretty terrible. I think the best thing about this movie with John Cusack in it is he's not really in it.
Yeah.
It's just all voiceover, and I think he does have a pretty menacing voice, and when he does show up for like kind of like the final confrontation, it works. But I mean, he was only in, like, he's literally physically in this movie for what, like 3 minutes total.
So he comes out and like grabs him around the throat, and I was like, ooh, John Cusack, you're actually kind of scary for once, because normally he just seems like, I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know if you know this, but I listened to How This Get Made, where they talked about Con Air, and they asked Danny Trejo, who like, because they're all playing like hardened criminals and stuff, like, who was like the toughest, who do you think the toughest guy on set was, or who was the most menacing of like all these guys? And Danny Trejo, who has been to prison, was just like, John Cusack. He's just like, apparently there's something about like behind John Cusack's eyes that's just like terrifying. So apparently John Cusack is a scary fucking dude, even to someone like Danny Trejo.
I'd like, if I'm walking down an alley and one way it's John Malkovich and one way it's John Cusack, I'm probably going to run to John Cusack. He looks like a nicer person. Like, Malkovich is scary, but I guess it's different.
Yeah, John Cusack just kind of looks like someone's dad.
Yeah.
Especially nowadays. But yeah, apparently in the late 90s, John Cusack was a scary mofo.
Okay. The rafter fight was kind of funny. Just he like knocks the gun down and he's trying to reach it and he has to step out onto a swinging rafter, and then Elija Wood gets it also on the rafter, like they do, you know, when you're like chasing someone and you're like behind a table, you know, fake left, fake right, and you run around in a circle. They kind of do that on the edge of one rafter, and then Elija Wood's only option is to run out, and then they have a little scuffle, and of course, like, bad guy falls and lands on the priceless piano, and yeah. But I did like that little fight. It was kind of funny. I felt really bad for the comic relief, the brother-in-law who he calls. He's just like a big doofus, and his wife is one of those like nagging shrew characters they like to use. So I felt bad for them. They both are like the only two that die that are like innocent victims.
Yeah.
And I guess that's like, I think we're supposed to feel bad for them, but don't make the woman character so obnoxious and naggy if I'm supposed to go, oh no, that's our hero's wife's sister. She shouldn't die, but I felt nothing for her because she was kind of awful.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things. I don't know if this movie wanted us to be sympathetic towards them necessarily, or if it was just like, you kind of want them to die and you're okay with them dying because they're so annoying, but you don't want them to die simply because they are innocent. Like, so yeah, I'm not sure how technically as the audience we're supposed to feel about them dying, unless it's just, I mean, solely it's there, I imagine, just to like raise the stakes. Like, yes, people are dying in the course of this movie, because otherwise, like, it's a thriller where no one dies.
Yeah.
It's not as exciting. But I mean, I think there's some great camera work in this movie as well. Like when the sister-in-law gets murdered, and Alex Winter grabs like the blade and he like slices her throat, and then it like cuts to the violin or the cello playing.
The cello,
there's a really cool shot where the brother-in-law like goes around, and you see the stage in the distance, and he's in the hallway, and he's talking to Alex Winter, and Alex Winter's like, yeah, and then he kills Alex Winter, and then as he's doing that and dragging the body off, like the camera is like zooming in. Like, for a movie that is all in one place, I think the director did a good job of like trying to make the shots a little bit more dynamic and more interesting, because like if you're looking at the same stage the whole time, it's gonna be boring. But if you do camera work, it can be a little bit more
especially with the
engrossing.
The playing was all very believable. Like, I believe that Elija Wood was actually playing.
Yeah,
and the music was good.
Yeah.
I only got two. Oh, I got a few things. This movie is only 78 minutes long.
Keeping it tight. I like it.
A 12-minute credit scene that takes it to 90 minutes. So little short, and I know movies, they do that. You know, they pad it out just to get to that feature length. But I was kind of grateful, because there was a lot of just like, that's stupid, and I don't like that.
So both of these movies that we watched were a tight 90 minutes. I wanted more, and with Grand Piano, I didn't need any more. Everything I needed in Grand Piano was there. There was a little bit more I wanted.
Because in other movies, it would be, we stopped the bad guy, cool. Oh, well, I'm gonna ride with the piano just for one last time, and then the John Cusack has killed the driver, and then they're having a fight on a freeway, and then the car. You know, they would just like add one more scene, and no, you didn't need that. He fell, landed on the piano, and then we get one scene where he like says his goodbye and plays a little bit on the broken.
Yeah, and I like that he played on a broken piano. I thought that was fun, and you just heard all the keys that were.
It sounds kind of silly because it isn't music, and then of course he walks away, and you hear the like ching clunk clunk, and then the key pops out.
I like that ending. I thought that was fun.
I mean, he deserves it.
Yeah.
I would say of the two Elija Wood movies we have done, I think Open Windows is better. It's dumber.
No.
It's way dumber, but it does so much more with its concept.
Yeah, but I think that's just a matter of you're a high concept guy, and I'm not. Well, I mean, I love a good high concept, but I think you appreciated the attempt more than the execution, where I often lean towards execution versus attempt.
Sure.
But I guess you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Because like Open Windows is a bad movie.
It is.
But there's some fun ideas, and it's solely carried because Elija Wood's so good in it. Yeah. And this is another movie where I think Elija Wood just can't really do bad performances. Yeah. I think no matter how dumb the movie he's in, he will always go 100%. And I think Elija Wood's great in Grand Piano. I think Grand Piano is a more cohesive, solid, like it's a good movie that is maybe buried in its concept a little bit.
If I was going to suggest one or the other to people, I'd say Open Windows, just because if I suggested this, people's like, oh yeah, that's kind of exactly it. Like, you pitch the idea, oh man, sitting at a piano and a guy has a gun to his head and he has to play perfectly. Yep, that's pretty much it. Whereas Open Windows, you could barely even, your synopsis doesn't even do it justice.
I can agree with that.
But Open Windows is a worse movie.
Yeah, for sure. I think if you're a film fan, I would pitch you Grand Piano. If you're just a regular layman person, and this all sounds so snooty and uppity.
Snob.
I'm not though.
Movie snob.
But yeah, it's just Open Windows is watchable because the concept is fun, and you're just like, I don't know. I
never know where that movie is going.
You don't. So I'm with you there, but
my last thing I'll say about this, there's a really nice message that his friend, the conductor, gives to him because he's really nervous. And he says, don't worry about your mistakes. Most people don't notice. And they do that later where he's getting to the last notes and he has to hit one more key and he hits the wrong key and he holds it and everybody in the audience just starts applauding because they don't know any better.
Right.
So I like that. It was a good little pep talk, and I think that applies to everybody. Don't worry about the little mistakes because people aren't looking. They're not noticing that.
Unless you're in the movie industry, because we will point out everything.
Yes, that's very, very true.
There's a big difference between playing a song perfectly and making the perfect film, because you really can't do it.
Yeah. That's all I got for Grand Piano. You have any last words?
I'm disappointed you didn't like it, or I've now given you 3 movies you haven't enjoyed watching, and part of me thinks like maybe you're the snob,
maybe,
and 2, maybe because I'm forcing you to watch something, you already have something against it going in.
I was up for this.
Okay.
I will say I watched it with my roommate in the room, and she was like scoffing the whole time. She hated this movie. Just like, that was one of the dumbest things I've seen. But of course, she was on her phone while she's watching, so she wasn't as invested. And I'm not biased to her criticism, but it kind of reinforced some of the things I was feeling, because I wanted to like it. I didn't want to be like, what the fuck, Steve? Here you go again, giving me more garbage. But having someone openly say I don't like this as well, I'm like, okay, I'm not being a contrarian just for a contrarian's sake.
Well, I guess I'm one of the 10 people on the entire planet who likes the movie Grand Piano.
Hey, like the writer, he's done some great work. I agree with him. This is his weaker stuff, and I would disassociate myself from it as well. No. But when you write like,
what's the name of like that throwaway name that a bunch of like directors...
Alan Smithy,
yeah. Yep. Alan Smithy wrote this one.
But when you have La La Land and Whiplash, Academy Award winning movies under your belt, this does look kind of weak. But blame the director.
I know. I think the director made some good choice. I just think it's just not for everybody, but I think it's if
maybe I'm a snob. I don't know. I don't feel like I'm a snob because, like I said last week, I love watching giant animals kill people. I love that schlock and the dumb stuff. But I guess maybe it needs to be award-winning high art, or just popcorn movie, turn your brain off, bottom of the barrel type stuff. Like maybe it's the in between.
Maybe I just need to start picking movies that I think you'll hate, and because then you'll like them. Because all the movies I think you might like, you don't. So
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, you got your work cut out for you, because you could either go once again, give me another bullshit thing like The Wrong Missy.
Well, I specifically picked something you would hate because I wanted you to hate watch it. I don't know. But I misunderstood the assignment. So that one was an accident.
I like that, because if Leprechaun 4 in Space was on a streaming thing, you would have watched that by now. So don't be ashamed to throw out really, really bad garbage, because I'll do it right back. And I think that makes for some fun conversations. But yeah, sorry, Steve.
What was the movie I made you watch last time?
Paddington,
right?
Yeah. Did you ever get around to watching 2?
No, not yet.
Yeah, I was talking to a buddy at work, telling him I saw Paddington, and how everybody said like Part 2 is the greatest movie of all time, best sequel, and he's like, okay, I saw Part 1 and it was fine, whatever. Came back the next day and like, that movie's fucking awesome. You need to watch Paddington 2. It's great. I'm like, okay, I'll give it a shot. But I don't know when I'm going to be in the mood.
How old is this guy?
He's younger than me, but
okay.
He's a year older than me. Yeah.
Okay.
So he's in his 40s, yeah.
Gotcha.
I mean, 25. So, yeah, that's this episode of Make Me Watch. I don't know when we'll do this again. This is a good fill in the gaps when there's not much to talk about.
Well, that was Make Me Watch. What do you want to see us watch? Do you have suggestions?
You could send all of your movie suggestions to wrplpodcast@gmail.com, or on Twitter or Instagram, WRPL Podcast on those platforms. As always, I'm Ben.
And I'm Steve.
Good night.
Naked body just hanging, getting blood drained. I thought that was a cool look.